Hey, everybody, and welcome to our new CrossWalk series. In this series, very excited to say that I'm going to be joined by my brother in Christ, brother in ministry, Aaron Hill, whom I graduated Harding with as well. And we are going to be discussing spiritual disciplines. We're going to be talking about some things in our lives that we are going to practice that is going to be positives for our lives to give us, help us to lead more disciplined lives in Christ, and also hopefully going to be able to build up our spiritual lives and take away maybe some of the negative things in our lives that we have used that are not working to the benefit of God's kingdom. And so what we're going to do is we're going to be trying to practice these spiritual disciplines. And these aren't going to be spiritual disciplines that we ourselves as ministers are only going to have the time to do. Our goal with this as well is that these are spiritual disciplines that every Christian can practice. The stay-at-home mom can practice. The mom of five can practice. People who are working full-time jobs, part-time jobs, people who are in college, or people who are in retirement. Regardless of where you're at in your life, we want these to be spiritual disciplines that every person can practice, that can find ways to practice. And so in this first month's episode, where we want to start out is by talking about the discipline of sacrifice. And whenever we talk about the discipline of sacrifice, what we're talking about in this way is finding some things in our lives that maybe are luxuries to us, things that do not maybe benefit us on the whole, but things that we like to do, and seeing if we can take those things, whether it be time, whether it be money, whether it be effort or energies, and be able to use those things better. Take maybe some things some time or some money that we were using for some things that were maybe not a huge benefit to us, but just things that we like to do, and try to see how we can use those for the work of God's kingdom. And so this month, the first thing we're going to talk about is sacrifice. And I want to open the floor up to Aaron and talk about what he's done this month in practicing sacrifice.
Right. So it's been a little bit more than a month, but some things that I have focused on the past few months is I've had some subscriptions, such as Disney Plus, some sports subscriptions, right? That take up one time, obviously, because I'm watching whatever's on those subscriptions, and it obviously costs monthly. So I got rid of some subscriptions. Then, along with that, I also had a PC I built, and for those who ever have built a PC, you know it can kind of get expensive. So it
Mm.
cost quite a bit of money, one, to build the PC, and two, some of the games I played, you kind of get sucked into spending money, right? Because that's where they
Mm.
get you. They get you to buy this game, and then they say, oh, look, here's all these add-ons, here's all these little extra things that you need in order to play this game, right?
Mhm.
And so these are some things that I was spending money on that I got rid of. I got rid of some subscriptions, and then I got rid of this PC that, in all honesty, was probably too much money, and it costs too much time playing some games. Anyway, so one way that I've replaced the cost of these subscriptions is that I've used the money to sometimes pay for food for the youth. Like, we do this once a month. The other Wednesdays we have soup kitchen, and so they have something to eat at church. But my wife and I decided, you know what, we can either make food for them or we can buy food for them. So once a month we either make or buy food. And then sometimes sporadically there have been cases where this one gentleman, he needed help with groceries, and so we bought him groceries. This one time, most recently, there was this lady who needed her lawn mowed, and so I said, you know what, I'll try. I got a push mower. It worked out, and so I was able to mow her lawn. I said, you know what, you don't have to pay me. This is something I'm willing to do from my own expense and my own time expense, right? And there have been a few occasions where, even with church, some things that they needed, that I decided, you know what, you don't have to reimburse me for this. I'm just going to cover the cost, right? And so those are ways in which I've taken the funds that I used to spend on what I liked. And if you notice, sometimes the things that we spend money on, most of the time, will actually require time. Not necessarily require time, but when we spend money on a lot of things, we're going to end up spending time on what we've spent money on.
Mhm.
So with the things that I used to have, subscriptions, the PC, those things took time. I've been able to use that time for, one, self-education, right? Some self-study. I don't just go through the week preparing and studying for what I'm going to present on Sunday, but now I've found that I have more time to read what I want to read things that help and benefit me, things that I'm not necessarily going to present for the congregation. Not only that, I've also found more time time to spend with my wife, right? As you probably know, and as a lot of people know, when you have games that you might play, you might get sucked in and you play like an hour, maybe 2 hours, right? And there goes that time, right? And
Mhm.
so now that I've got rid of that time consumption, I've been able to focus on more time with my wife and more time with self edifying study, right? And so those are just a few ways that I've been able to take what I've sacrificed and fill it with something good, something that is fruitful.
Mm, mm. It's beautiful being able to sacrifice those things that we may like, but we don't necessarily need in order to do things that can be a blessing not only in our lives but to the benefit of God's kingdom in that way. And on the same in the same way, I also have been practicing this discipline of sacrifice as well, where I'm somebody who sometimes struggles with food habits, especially finding it hard to eat at home.
Don't we all, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. To eat at home, to eat some good healthy food whenever, there's just so many options available to you. Especially I live in an area now where um, I just have every fast food option pretty much imaginable ready and available at a moment's notice. And so what I've tried to do is taper some of my fast food consumption going out to eat and instead trying to eat at home a little bit more and using some of that money that I was using to eat out on myself, for my own consumption, to be able to then buy things to create things for people who are asking for things on the street, homeless people, or those
Mhm.
who are in need. Because there's always this confliction that the Christian feels whenever they see somebody on the side of the road and they're asking for something, but we don't want to necessarily give them money because oftentimes the reason why they may be homeless in the first place is because of some of those bad habits that they're probably going to be using that money for. But instead, what I wanted to do is still try to be able to give to those people who are in need,
Mhm.
but I wanted to give them something more than just money. And so what I did was I bought a couple cases of water. I bought some packs of socks at Costco. I bought some things of trail mix and granola bars. And I put all of that together in a little kit, put it in a Ziploc bag first, and then put some bottles of water on the side, put it all in like a plastic bag, like a Walmart bag or Target bag or something like that, and then put them in my vehicle. So that way, whenever I see somebody on the side of the road who has a sign that says homeless, anything helps or something like that, I can very simply roll down my window, hand them one of the bags, and it's already
Right.
got, a couple of fresh pairs of socks, some waters, some food for them that can last them for, a couple of days at least. And so that way I can, in this way,
Mhm.
I can spend a little bit less of that money on myself for things that
Yeah.
are not good for me, but instead
Right.
be able to turn that into something that can benefit those who are in need and be able to fill out the
Mhm.
mission that Jesus has given us so that way we can clothe the naked, feed the hungry, and
Right.
give water to those who are thirsty in that way. And so that was my goal with that, and it's been a good experience. But and in that vein, I want to talk about the benefits that we personally have felt from these things. Sacrifice. Now, often when you hear the word sacrifice, you could go, well, what benefits could there be to
Right. Right. Right.
sacrifice? Because it's sacrifice. But I want to open the floor up to Aaron again to talk about what benefits he's felt, because he has felt some real
Yeah.
benefits with this sacrifice, and what have those things been in your life?
Right. So interestingly enough, even though it's not like I'm not doing anything with that time that I've sacrificed. I've replaced it with some things. So I'm still doing the same amount, I guess you could say, of activities that I was before, but I
Mhm.
feel less busy. Even though I've replaced those activities with something else, I feel less busy. Like, as I mentioned, self edifying study, spending time with my wife. Even though I've replaced what I was doing before, playing games, watching TV, watching sports, watching something on Disney Plus, right? Watching all of that, I've replaced it with self edifying things, with time with my wife. And so, even though it's not like I'm just sitting around doing nothing, man, I'm spending time on things that are fruitful,
Mhm.
things that you could call things of God, things that are pleasing to God. And so maybe that's why I feel like I'm less busy,
Mm.
because these things that I've replaced, the you could say negatives, these things that are time fillers, I've
Mhm.
replaced them with things that are fruitful. I've replaced them with things that glorify God. I've replaced them with things that are really fulfilling,
Mm.
rather than these things that just are distractions. because often if you've noticed, like when we spend time playing games or when we spend time watching TV, and I'm not saying that those things are inherently bad or whatever. I'm not saying that we could never watch TV or anything like that.
Hmm.
But often we do those things because we're like, well, I don't have anything else to do, so what can I do just to fill time, right?
Hmm.
And so sometimes I think we fall into that trap where we just waste time when we could be doing things that are fulfilling. And even though we're not, just doing nothing, even though we're filling that time, it's filled with things that are good,
Hmm.
things that actually end up fulfilling us, things that don't make us feel overwhelmed, right?
Hmm.
Things that are good in God's eyes, right?
And I think a word that you used in this discussion before, when we were talking before the video started, was freedom. You felt
Mm,
a freedom from these things. Would you like to talk about that a little bit?
right, right. And so, as I mentioned, these things that we spend money on, sometimes maybe we spend money on these things, so we kind of feel maybe an obligation, like I'm
Mhm.
spending money on this thing, I'm spending money on this subscription, so I have to use it. Or like I've spent money on this PC, I spent money on this game, so if I'm spending money, why not use it?
Mhm.
Right. And so in that way, we become a slave to it because we feel like we have to use it. Once we've spent that money, we feel like we have to spend time on that thing. Right. And so in that way, we become a slave. And since I've eliminated those things that I felt obligated to almost,
Mhm.
I feel more free.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and I think that's such a powerful metaphor for the freedom in Christ that we feel when we
Mhm.
give up the things of this world, the things that we felt like at one point we couldn't live without, but then
Right.
we find freedom in Christ, and then we realize, oh man, even though I felt like I must do those things were killing me, those things were
Right.
unhealthy for me in that way, even things that maybe aren't sinful inherently, but as you
Mhm.
say, I like to call them compound mistakes, is what my basketball coach in high school told me, where we make the maybe initial investment, which may be a mistake, but because we have made that initial investment, now we want to keep doubling down because we feel like, well, I've already invested so much in this,
Right.
but I can't quit now. So then we continue to invest, right,
Yeah.
in those kind of things where we just get deeper and deeper into whatever we're doing that may be affecting us negatively. And so that's amazing that you've been able to experience that. And I myself
Mhm.
as well, it's been very liberating for me personally just to know that, hey, if somebody's in need, I no longer have to feel
Mhm.
this inner conflict about, oh, what should I do? I'm a Christian, so
Right.
I feel like I should do something for them, but I don't want to give them just money, not because I don't want to give up my money, but because I just don't want to hurt them more or not be able
Mhm.
to, like, I'm trying to be helpful, and so I want
Yeah.
to continue that and finding a way to do
Yeah.
that. And in this, I feel my own sense of freedom because now I feel like, okay, I know what I got to do now. I can just give them this bag of whatever the stuff that I've been able um to build up for them specifically and for their needs, and be able to help them out and know I am benefiting them. Now, if it's somebody who has been faking needing those things in order to get some money or something, and so they reject the bag, well, then that's on them. But for
Mm.
those who truly need it, they'll take it and they'll be grateful for it. And that would be that's been something that's certainly been helpful for me, to be able to just know, like, I can now do what I feel like is my Christian duty,
Mhm.
um, while also being able to help myself as well to learn some self-discipline, some self-control, which of course is the
Yeah.
goal of spiritual disciplines, is to feel disciplined, um, to not need to eat out, not need to
Right.
have those things, and be able to say no to that. And as you said earlier, a very key point, it's not just that you are um, stop doing those things and then you don't do anything with the, if you're saving some money but not doing anything with it, if you're cutting some bad habits out but you do nothing with it, then
Right.
we potentially get ourselves in a situation where we remove one evil spirit and leave room for several more,
Mm.
as Jesus talked about in I believe Luke. Um, in our own lives, we need to, when we make these cuts, we can make some good cuts, but if we don't do something
Mhm.
beneficial with them, bad things can follow. And so
Right.
in this way, I feel like it's been a great thing as for the both of us that we've been able to make these cuts and then be able to do the good things of the work of God's kingdom with them, and have
Yeah.
felt freedom from some things that maybe was wearing us down that maybe we didn't even recognize before,
Right.
that now we became conscious of when we have gained that freedom in that way. Anything else you
Mm.
want to say before we close out, brother?
Yeah, yeah. As far as I want to build on the idea of being able to use funds to help others, feeling more free to do so.
Mhm.
Sometimes I think what gets in the way is that we think, oh man, do I really have money to do that? I don't know if I have enough money to help this person or whatever. We feel like our budget's tight. Well, who made the budget tight, right?
Mhm.
Is our budget really that tight? Or are we just spending money on things that are only, self-pleasing, right?
Mm.
And again, it's not that we can't ever, enjoy things like watching TV. It's not that that's inherently bad, but sometimes I think we treat our budget like it's so tight when we are the ones who are making it tight because we're spending all this money on these different subscriptions, these different games, or whatever it may be, right?
Mhm.
And so when you identify things that, man, this is not really beneficial, this is not really fruitful, and you eliminate that, that actually might free up your budget and you feel a little more comfortable, and not comfortable in the sense that, oh, I got no worries, but you realize, hey, I have money that I can use to help other people, right?
Yeah.
You recognize that the budget's not as tight as it is. It's because, I've spent all this money, right?
Mhm.
And that's why I feel like I can't help people, because I've been self-centered, uh, and only spending money on things that I want, right?
So when we invest our time, our effort, and our energy in the frivolous things of this world, we can very quickly um, end up being a slave to it, and we find
Mm,
no way out of it. And this is where
right.
I think it's very important for us as Christians to be able to identify those frivolous things, those things that we do that are luxuries, that are not necessities, things that we
Mm,
want to do, but maybe not the things that are beneficial or needed, and be able to make those changes so that way we can be the best disciples, best Christians that we can be in that way.
right.
Yep. So thank you, brother. I want to thank you for joining us this week's for this discussion. And Aaron, you're going to keep being here for this series. I'm really
Mm,
excited for this, and I hope all of you out there who are watching, you were edified by this conversation. If you were, please like and share this video so that way more people can be edified by it. And I hope you can join us next week as we talk about another spiritual discipline that we can all walk in and we can all be edified by. But thank you so much, and we'll see y'all next month.
see ya.